that is super good to be a story about perseverance Babylon. And then we're going to be doing a synopsis, and then we're going to be reading. I don't want to pronounce it wrong. Hittite Warrior. So if you're going to make the like, subscribe, and I don't know what to do. My dad is here to do it. The Bible time. So if you're going to do it, make sure like, subscribe. I already said that, so. Bah! Bah!
Hello, how is everybody? Thank you, one person, for showing up and being here. Besides, of course, the two people that are in the room with me and the two furry things that are also in the room with me. All right, so we're on Ecclesiastes chapter 5. 3 furry things, excuse me.
Baby Yoda.
And Baby Yoda.
And you.
Here's Baby Yoda. All right.
You're also furry.
Okay.
I love chest hair.
Let me go ahead and get started. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 5. This is the English Standard Version. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. To draw near to listen is better than to offer the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they are doing evil. Be not rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. Read that sentence again. Therefore, let your words be few. For a dream comes with much business, and a fool's voice with many words. When you vow a vow to God, do not delay paying it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Let not your mouth lead you into sin, and do not say before the messenger that it was a mistake. Why should God be angry at your voice and destroy the work of your hands? For when dreams increase and words grow many, there is vanity. But God is the one you must fear. If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the manner, for the high official is watched by the higher, and there are yet higher ones over them. But this is gain for a land in every way, a king committed to cultivated fields. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eats them, and what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Sweet is the sleep of the laborer, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. There is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun. Riches were kept by the owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again, naked as he came, and shall take nothing for his toil that he may carry away in his hand. This also is a grievous evil. Just as he came, so shall he go. And what gain is there to him who toils for the wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness, in much vexation and sickness and anger. Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun the few days of his life that God has given him. For this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them, and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil, this is a gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. That's the end of Ecclesiastes chapter 5. So now we're on to Hittite Warrior. So, in the last few chapters, what we read about was about this lad named Jotham.
No synopsis?
No, I was gonna talk to you, but
This lad named Jotham, and there was the other dude named, I'm trying to look for his name. No, yeah, Uriah was the MC in
Yavin?
this. Yavin, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Because it sounds like Yavin, but it's Yabin is his name.
Yavin.
And Yabin was sacrificed to the gods. Here's Kimberly to say how it really happened.
No, Yavin lives.
So what actually happened was, I'm sorry, I forget names. Watch, I'm gonna remember all the names
Jotham?
right at the end of the book.
Uriah, Jotham.
Jotham, he stole Yabin, right?
Yep.
Okay, Jotham, he stole Yabin from the priests in the temples. The trip was tiring, Granny Bear. Granny Bear asked, how was the trip? Tired.
Very tired.
So, Dad. So, he stole them from the priests, and then, I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names right now.
Uriah.
Nope. Uriah, yeah. Uriah, kind of had the chance to rat him out, but didn't. Aww. Granny Bear says lots of hugs. Thanks. And so they started walking all day, and Yabin was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I've never walked this far in my life. And they met some very nice people, and now they're going with somewhere, right? Isn't that right?
Sure.
I think that's just about it.
It has been a little while since we read, so...
Yeah, I don't remember everything perfectly, but I think I did a pretty good job for 3-4 days.
Yeah, it's been a while. Right, it was Tuesday, I think. Because we didn't do it
Wow.
Wednesday, and then we were going to do it Thursday, but I think we watched a movie instead.
Right, wow.
Yep.
I'm going to hand it off to Dad, who's going to read us a story.
Yay! Hello, once again. We are on chapter 10. A knife, or rather, the knife, is ready, and all my children are leaving me. So, I'll just wait for Kimberly to get back.
She's already read the book.
JJ got his water, so that's all good. And hopefully, okay, so this pause brought to you by...
Wait, I have a joke.
JJ has joke of the day.
Yes, I do. You can still sit there. A sheep, a drum, and a snake fell off a cliff. Ba-dun-tsh.
I think it's
Yeah.
Ba-dum.
Ba-dum.
I'm back.
All right.
Ba-dum.
Okay, that's enough of the joke of the day.
Okay.
Now we're on to chapter 10. The knife is ready. Though the hangings of the tent kept out most of the sun, there were streaks of light across the face of Yabin when I awoke. Jotham was already stirring, and I heard the sounds of women preparing food. I thought that I would tell Jotham that I had heard before I had slept, what I had heard before I slept. Jotham listened and looked at me in amazement. Barak ben Abinoam, he said. I was told of him when I was a child. He is a great man of the Naphtalites, a judge of Kadesh, and a great fighter. Once when he was young, he led his tribe against the slave raiders of the Amalekites, and there were no more raids for a year. What is he doing here? But I had other things to discuss with Jotham, for I had told myself that today would be the day when Jotham and I would part company. I had already half decided to go back to Tyre, explain what had happened, and take my chances. Jotham was as safe by now as he ever would be, and I would surely say nothing to betray him. But when I told Jotham this, he shook his head, and his words sent a chill into my heart. You cannot go back today, he said. You cannot leave here, and neither can I. What are you saying? I cried. Who has told you this? Are we prisoners? Hushai himself has told me, said Jotham patiently. He has told me that there is trouble in the hills, and that we must remain in the tents till it is proved whether we are friends or enemies." I looked around in astonishment and anger at the big, bustling encampment of Hushai, noisy with the bawling of animals. Once again I met the eyes of Samuel. He was smiling now, and his smile worried me more than anything Jotham had said. Suddenly I found that I was afraid. When we went into the hills with the men that morning, as it was the custom among the tribes for guests to make themselves useful. We took Jabin with us, and he watched all that went on in wonder and growing delight. It was as new to me as it was to him, for my father had kept no sheep. I had always thought of them as placid creatures who would follow anyone or anything that led them, but it was not so. They ran and jumped and cried out and pushed one another until I wondered how anyone could have the patience to bother with the stupid creatures. Jabin did not help matters. He was greatly excited and ran about bleating like the lambs and laughing shrilly. Several times he sent them scattering, and it was hard work to round them up again. Jotham, for some reason, had become very fond of Jabin and would not correct him, so it was I who finally shook him till his neck was nearly broken, and threatened him with worse if he did not listen and learn and stop running about. Barak, too, had gone with us, and I watched in amazement his skill with the animals. "Hi, hi, hi!" he would shout like the loudest of the shepherds, using his stave like a marshal's staff, and it was hard to believe that this contented herdsman was a famous fighter and a judge of the town of Kadesh. At midday we lay at our ease, ate bread and cheese, and drank from a water skin as we gazed far off to the north at the towering white tops of the great mountains, home of the gods. "Baal Harmon lives there," said Jabin dreamily. Samuel looked at him sternly, saying, "Baal Harmon has no power here. He can only stay on his mountain. He is not as the Lord our God, who can travel with us wherever we go in the ark." "What is the ark?" It was Barak who replied, lying on his back, gazing intently into the cloudless sky. "The ark is the golden house of the Lord that our people built for him when we found him in the desert on the Sinai mountain. He is a God of fire and thunder, and our fathers say that when our people fled from Egypt, they heard his voice and saw the light of his face on top of that mountain, and they knew that only he could keep them safe in the desert and bring them home again to Canaan. So they built him the ark, that they might carry him with them on the shoulders of 4 strong men and have him near wherever they wandered." "Where is he now?" asked Jabin, sounding a little frightened. Barak turned his head and smiled at him. "In the south, guarded by the tribe of Ephraim, in the fine tent of many colors." "Then how can he be here and protect me from Moloch?" Jabin sounded more frightened still. "No other god can withstand him, wherever he is," Barak assured him, but Jabin did not look too certain. Barak laughed and ruffled his hair. For some reason I found myself thinking of the Lady Maris story of the accursed Pharaoh and the beautiful lady, and how they had laughed with their children in the sunlit temple of their god. But Barak did not smile or laugh with Jotham or with me, and the young man, Samuel, did not speak to us at all, only watched us now and then with that strange smile. Something surely was wrong. As the day wore on, my heart grew heavier and heavier with the fear of what the night might bring. Toward evening, we kindled a fire for the evening meal. There was little talk, and I thought that Barak and Samuel seemed to be waiting for something. Even the little boy, Aphia, seemed to know something that we did not, and when he thought we were not looking, watched us with scared, solemn eyes. Nothing had happened by the time we had finished eating, and later we stretched ourselves in our robes by the fire and settled ourselves for sleep. I began to think I had been afraid only from cowardice and not for any real reason. Jabin came close to Jotham and me, whispering, "Will it get too cold when the fire is out?" "We must take our turns watching so the fire will not go out," said Jotham. "It will keep away the beasts, too." "That's good," said Jabin, and, almost before the words were out of his mouth, was asleep. But I did not sleep for a while, and I knew that Jotham did not either, though he lay so still beside me. Once I looked at him out of the corner of my eyes and saw him, motionless on his back, staring into the dark sky. Nothing about him moved except his lips, and I saw that he was whispering some soundless prayer. I shuddered, for there was no image before him. To what was he praying? Deeply troubled, I turned away from him, and, after a while, slept. But my sleep was broken. I dreamt of my father, who gazed at me in my sleep with grieving eyes. "Who are these people who despise our gods?" he asked me. "And what are you doing among them? Only evil can come of a broken promise." Then his face dissolved into a blinding light, and I awoke with a cry, the light of a torch blazing into my eyes. Samuel stood smiling above me. "We have been called to the tents," he said. "The woman from Ramah is here." I started to my feet and shook my head to clear it. I knew that whatever it was I had been afraid of was upon us. "Woman? What woman?" I mumbled, remembering the talk I had heard between Barak and Hushai and my dream of the night before. The firelight shone red on the dark young face of Samuel, making him look like some long-ago savage out of the desert. "She is a seeress," he said softly. "She has had many visions from the great God. She will tell us if your friend is a true man of Ephraim, or if you are only Canaanite spies." My heart sank, remembering the sacred old women of our village at home, with their glaring eyes and their spells and curses. "And," I said, "if she tells you we are spies?" Samuel's eyes gleamed. "An altar stone has been raised on a high place not far away," he said, his voice shaking a little. "The sacred knife is ready. If her judgment goes against you, the mighty Yahweh will have his sacrifice tonight." Chapter 11. The Woman from Ramah. Changes had been made on the grounds where the tents were pitched. 2 new ones had been thrown up, I supposed, for the woman of Ramah and her servants, and they were finer than any I had seen before, striped in gay colors. The tents were all lit by torches, and we could see that people were moving about within them in great excitement. Outside there was the tinkling of bells on pack animals and much braying of donkeys. Leah, the first wife of Hushai, came to meet us, hastening toward her son. "She is in the tent of your father," she said in a hurried, excited voice. "Your sister has brought water for you from the well. Hurry to make yourself clean. What a pity there is no time to dress the child in the fine clothes he wore last night." "Mother," cried Samuel. "Oh, never mind," said Leah impatiently. "Go wash yourself." Then her eyes fell upon Jotham and me, and she fell silent and turned pale. We went to the water buckets in the yard, which smelled of goats and sheep. It reminded me of the smell of the barnyards at home, so that many legs began to tremble a little less. It seemed we were expected to make ourselves very fine, and in sudden defiance I splashed myself with water from the buckets and gave great attention to the braiding of my hair. I regretted that my golden ornaments and earrings had been sunk into the sea. If this were to be my death night, I wanted to meet it like a Hittite lord. At last we were ready. Fear came upon me again, and as we walked to the tent of Hushai, at the entrance an odor reached us that seemed familiar to me. I could just remember it from the old days at home, on the rare occasions when caravans would come to Arzawa, carrying supplies from the far-distant Hindus Valley. It was the odor of a brew of tea leaves, which at the home had been thought one of the rarest pleasures of the great world. To find it here in this wild place made everything seem stranger than ever. We entered the tent. Into the light of the torches, a little lady was seated on a pile of the best rugs and cushions owned by Hushai ben Aaron. Others had been set aside for Barak, who sat beside her, watching her steadily. This, then, was the woman from Ramah. She was far from being the wild-eyed holy woman I had expected. She was dressed in a fine woven robe of many colors with a golden net upon her head. Her hands were little, delicate, and wrinkled, and there were rings on her fingers. I suppose she was old, but her skin was fair and soft, her eyes bright and black. The family and servants of Hushai ben Aaron were staring at her as if she herself were a vision. "She has a house," I heard Leah whisper to her son, "and lives all the year on her farmlands not far from the town of Gilgal, where the great altar stones are." "Come into the light," said the woman, peering into the shadows where we stood. Her voice was not old at all, but brisk and strong. Hushai ben Aaron urged us forward. Jabin clung to both our hands, staring in awe at the sorceress, but he was not as frightened as he had been, for she was not nearly so different from the old ladies he had known before. She looked first at me. "A Hittite, of course," she said. "The fair skin, the braid, the manner of a lord, and the hands of a farmer. Who could mistake him?" I bowed to her with much respect, for she was surely a great lady, even though a seeress and a tribeswoman of the hill country, and even though she held my life in her hands. "Come here, child," she said to Jabin, and he went to her trustingly, bowed with his hands to his heart like any well-bred little Canaanite boy. "Whoever they are, this one is harmless enough," she said. "Well, why are you staring? Have they told you I see visions?" "Are you a seeress?" asked Jabin in a small voice. "Do the Holy Ones talk to you?" "Sometimes the Holy One talks to me," said the woman seriously, "but not through magic signs and sacred dice. Tamar, put him to bed." I saw that she wanted Tamar to leave as much as Jabin. The fear came back to me more strongly than ever, though I was glad to know for sure that Jabin was safe. Now the woman had turned toward Jotham, and her face had changed. It was hard and grave, like the face of a judge. "You say you are an Ephraimite," she said to him. "From what part of the land?" "My father had flocks," he said, "that grazed near Bethel, the house of God in the south." "I know the people of Bethel," said the woman. "I have not seen you among them." "I have not been among them since I was a child," said Jotham, "but I have seen you." "And who am I?" "You are Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth," said Jotham. "When your husband lived, he sometimes let my father water his beasts on your land. You were the lady of the great house under the palm tree, the first of the tribe of Ephraim." The woman Deborah beckoned him closer and looked intently into his face. "I have seen a face like yours," she said, "and I have heard a story. Who was your father?" "Amram," said Jotham. "Amram ben Omri." The woman of Ramah sighed and closed her eyes. "Surely," she said, "that was the story." Suddenly Samuel sprang to his feet. "Any man can give a false name," he cried, "and if he is who he says he is, still he comes from Tyre and has lived with the evil ones for many years. Condemn them both, great lady. A terrible time is coming upon us, and our God will be better pleased for a sacrifice." "Be still." The voice of Barak was not loud, but it filled the tent. The torchlight shone in his eyes and blazed back from them, and he seemed like a man I had never seen before. "Barak," I thought. "Lightning. Who are you to speak to a woman of God who has had visions? God will demand his sacrifice, not you or any of us here." The eyes of the woman Deborah were fixed somberly on the image of the golden bull that Jotham had looked upon so scornfully the night before. "That God would be better pleased for a sacrifice," she said. whether of just or unjust men. He is not mine." Samuel sat back angrily, muttering that the household image had been in his family for hundreds of years and had been brought with them from Egypt, but he said no more. For a while the woman was silent, swaying slightly, her eyes closed. Suddenly they opened, and she set her hands firmly on Jotham's shoulders and gazed deeply into his eyes. There was silence in the tent of Hushai, the family and servants hardly daring to breathe. Her hands moved down his arms and fastened up his wrists. I thought that she was seeing a vision. "His eyes do not falter," she said in a soft, thin voice, "and his blood beats as calm as mine." Suddenly she pressed his hands and put him away from her. "God has judged. This is a true man of Israel. There will be no sacrifice tonight." "If Deborah says it, then it is so," said Barak. There was a murmur of awe in the tent, and I felt myself beginning to tremble all over. I could not believe that it was finished, that I had really been saved from death. Deborah turned again to Jotham and spoke in her usual brisk manner. "I knew your father," she said, "and I knew your uncle better still, those scoundrels down in Gaza." I had a shaky desire to laugh. She sounded so like Ethbaal. "But the tribes have seen the light, and the curse of the judges has been upon your uncle for many years now. He does not dare return to the hills." Suddenly Samuel, who had been very quiet, spoke again. "What about him?" he said, looking at me. "I saw that, as he was now forbidden to hate Jotham, he hated me more than ever." Deborah looked at me for a long time without speaking. Though I knew I was in no more danger, I found that I could not meet her eyes. Even now I am filled with shame as I remember, for though I did not know it then, I know now that my treachery to these people was already in my heart. "There is no need for judgment on him," said Deborah. "He is a stranger who has done us no harm. We have only to show him the hospitality that has been the custom of our fathers." Suddenly, free from my fear of death, a great curiosity came upon me. Why was the woman Deborah here? Why had she traveled so far? Why had a much revered woman of God come from the south to meet with a famous war leader and an important man of a northern tribe? Why were they so afraid of Canaanite spies, and why had Samuel said that a terrible time was coming upon them? I was a stranger, and I knew they did not trust me, but I promised myself that I would find out the answers. I did not sleep that night, and I heard Jotham now moving restlessly beside me. "Jotham," I whispered, "are you thinking of Tyre?" "Yes," said Jotham. "If you could go back," I whispered, "would you?" "I would never go back," he said quietly. I saw that he meant it. The same look was in his eyes that had been there when he had lain so still underneath the stars. "She is a great lady," I said. "Who?" muttered Jotham. "The seeress from Ramah. She would have been a great lady even in Hattusis." Suddenly Jotham rose on his elbow, and there was a look of pride and joy and scorn in his eyes. "Hattusis, that city of horse-catchers, does she not spring from a race of men who were lords in Egypt?" That's the end of chapter 11, and I think that's where we're going to pause for the evening, because we are actually missing one in our midst. I think that he can hear me, but just to be sure, and also because it has been a rather long day and we need to get the younglings to bed, so I'm going to pause right there. The next chapter is called "The Lord is a Man of War." That's chapter 12. The Lord is a man of war, and the first word is in. And I hope that you are enjoying the story Hittite Warrior by Joanne Williamson. A great story from obviously the time of the judges. So God bless you, and I hope that you have a great night, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you. Bye.